A long time ago, I briefly lived with my good friend Beto on a quiet street, perhaps only notable for being near Detroit. It wasn't the nicest house, block, or area, but the price was unbeatable for two broke young guys like us. Beto and I had been friends since we were 9 years old, and at the time of this story, we worked at the same job, so living together seemed like a great idea. On our first day there, we quickly discovered that the creepy house across the street, with overgrown grass and bushes, was abandoned, just like many of the houses in the area. In fact, there was even graffiti on the fence next to one of the front windows. Our neighbors on one side seemed suspicious, and we didn't even want to get close to them. The neighbor on the other side was an older guy, a very interesting character. His name was Marcos. He had long gray hair that matched his long gray beard. He seemed friendly at first, but also very odd and hard to talk to. We talked to him on our second day there after work. He told us the abandoned house had been empty for as long as he could remember. That night, with the sun almost setting as we sat on the front steps smoking, I looked at the house across the street and felt a chill in my stomach. I freaked out, stood up, threw my cigarette on the ground, and stomped it out. Beto looked at me, confused, and I pointed to the upstairs window of the house. "Did you see that? There's someone in that window." Beto immediately looked over, but the person moved their head before he could see. It was strange. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman, old or young. The glass was too foggy. All I knew was that I saw eyes staring at us. Beto said I was making him uncomfortable, but he believed me. We ran to Marco's house to tell him, but strangely, he didn't answer the door, even though we could see him watching TV in his messy living room through the window. The fact that he didn't respond made us even more uneasy. "Dude, what the hell is going on with this place?" Beto tried to lighten the mood, but the situation wasn't funny for long. He had a katana and, impulsively, suggested that we go across the street with it, break into the house through the backyard, and find out what was happening. We had always been adventurous and bold as kids, so this was our natural response to the situation. When it got dark, we crossed the street, entered through the backyard, ripped off the board that kept the back door shut, and stepped inside. We didn't have any strong flashlights to light up the rooms. The house was dusty, decayed, but surprisingly, it looked untouched inside. There was no graffiti or signs of vandalism anywhere. Still, the place was eerily sinister. We joked about leaving, but we kept going. The first floor was pathetically small, just like ours, a kitchen, a tiny living room, and a dining room. There was no basement, just a closet. The first floor was clear. We agreed to check upstairs. As we climbed the stairs, out of nowhere, Beto shouted, "There's someone up there, man." "Why the hell would you do that?" I whispered, terrified. We froze when we heard fast, heavy footsteps coming from upstairs. Someone big was running toward the staircase. My heart stopped. Beto, who was holding the katana, was the first to bolt, grabbing my arm and pulling me with him. We got out the same way we came in and ran back to our house. That's when we saw Marcos standing at his window, watching us. We didn't know what to do. He just stared at us intensely as we tried to catch our breath in front of our house. We went inside and decided not to call the police. The next day, we moved out immediately. We explained to the landlord that the location was too inconvenient and we needed to leave as soon as possible. We left that house and never looked back. Karina was the only person who was like a mother to me. In fact, she may have been the only maternal figure I ever had. My biological mother was permanently absent during my childhood. I only reconnected with her now, as an adult. Even though Karina was the eldest of my mother's cousins, she always saw me and treated me as one of her children. She even included me in her inheritance as such. If I'm saying this, it's because I can't say anything about her except that she was one of the kindest women I've ever known. And that is precisely why what we discovered left us completely shocked. Or rather, horrified would be the more accurate word. She passed away 2 months ago, and the last year of her life was incredibly difficult. Suddenly, from one day to the next, she lost the clarity that had always defined her. She was elderly, of course, but she had always been strong and sharp. She was always the brightest person in the room, the one with the best advice and a solution to every problem. Unfortunately, something changed in her. as if her mind had drifted to a distant place and never returned. From that moment on, she required 24-hour care, and fortunately, there was always someone willing to stay with her. I also took care of her. She was never alone with just one person. There were always at least two of us. That's how much we all loved her, enough to adjust our routines, give up hobbies, do whatever was necessary to be with her. She had a beautiful, spacious house that she bought after becoming a widow. It had always been her dream to have a big house just for herself, but with plenty of rooms so everyone could visit. She made that dream a reality, and of course, we all visited as often as we could. But the house did not come alone. I know how this sounds, but I swear that every night there was a crying sound that seemed to come from within the walls, as if the house itself was a tormented soul. When Karina started losing her lucidity, some of the grandchildren insisted that she talk to herself, that in her room it sounded like she was having conversations with someone. But the worst came one night when her daughter, Maite, heard something terrifying in the hallway. Whatever Karina had been talking to was talking back. She went in to check and searched every corner of the house. Later, we all did the same. The crying was no longer the only manifestation. Every time we left her alone, Karina would talk to someone. There was another voice. After she passed away, the crying stopped soon after. But that's where the worst part of the story begins. Alex and his father asked me to go with them to the house one night. They wanted to go through and sort out some belongings that needed to be distributed or donated. Alex was her favorite grandchild. We went there together, but something felt strange. There was a foul smell throughout the house. As we walked toward Karina's bedroom, we felt as if we were approaching something terrible. And we were right. The moment we opened the door, we realized the stench was coming from there. Everything was in disarray, as if someone had gone through her things. At that moment, I thought a burglar had broken in to steal something. Maybe a homeless person had found out the house was empty and taken advantage. But no, the reality was much worse. Among the scattered belongings, we noticed splinters of wood, as if a table or door had been broken. The splinters seemed to have come from the wardrobe, a huge, finely crafted wooden wardrobe. We opened its doors and something was broken inside, the back panel. We stepped closer to examine it, and that's when we saw it. Inside the wardrobe, hidden behind the wall, was an entrance to a small, secret room. The place smelled awful. It was filled with garbage, food scraps, animal bones, and filth. The stench was pure urine and excrement. The moment I stepped inside to look, I ran straight to the bathroom to vomit. Alex did the same, but didn't make it to the bathroom. He threw up in the hallway. His father was the one who went inside the room. He quickly shut the place up and called one of Karina's older sons. He arrived soon after and told us to stay downstairs. Meanwhile, Alex and I searched through everything. It was clear that something or someone had lived there. Someone had inhabited that space, but for how long? Had they come with Karina when she moved in, or had they always been there? Karina must have fed it, otherwise it would have been impossible for it to survive. And whatever it was, it escaped, breaking through the door a few days after her death, probably starving and fighting for its life. They said they wanted to protect her memory, but I believe they were actually protecting themselves, as they always did. Just like they hired a lawyer to have me removed from the inheritance, changed the will, and excluded me. That's why I decided not to keep my promise and told everyone. I will always wonder, who was the person that lived in there? How long had they been in that place? And most importantly, where are they now? This happened when I was 9 years old. I left school early because my brother and his friend Julia, who were both 7 at the time, had a dance performance later that day. I was with them along with Julia's mother and her aunt, but it didn't really feel like I was with them. My brother has very dark skin, and some people thought he might have been adopted. I, on the other hand, was pale, almost sickly looking. We often drew attention when we were together. We were sitting on the bus. Me, a 9-year-old in my school uniform, a gray knee-length skirt, a white shirt, and a red sweater tied around my waist. I was alone with my lunchbox on the seat beside me, just minding my own business. About halfway through our 30-minute ride to the theater where my brother would perform, a man got on the bus. He was the typical creepy guy, overweight, with a strong smell, loose and dirty clothes, and an unshaven beard. He climbed the steps and stopped next to the empty seat beside me. At the time, I didn't realize that there were plenty of other empty seats he could have taken. So I just moved my lunchbox, assuming he needed the spot. He sat down way too close to me, and I could feel his eyes on me. I was uncomfortable, but being the shy child I was, I said nothing. He stayed there for a good 10 minutes, until his behavior changed. He quickly looked around and moved his hand toward my leg. That was when Julia's mother, who was sitting behind him, smacked him on the head with an umbrella and said, "Stop looking at her legs, you filthy pig." He jerked away instantly. From the look on his face, it seemed like he had never moved so fast in his life. The rest of the trip was uneventful. I was shaken, but I felt like Julia's mother had seen what he was about to do. When we got off the bus, I looked back at him, and he gave me a menacing smile and a wink. I ran off, pretending nothing had happened. I took that bus every day for the next year, until, unexpectedly, he disappeared. A few years later, while searching for a news story on a local website, I stumbled across his photo. It was the same man with that same sinister smile. The article explained that he had been arrested for crimes against minors and had admitted to committing an atrocious act against a 5-year-old child. It still chills me to this day to think about what could have happened if Yulia's mother hadn't been there.